Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Manisha Gupta and I am assistant professor in Noida Institute of Engineering Technology in MBA department, and I welcome you in our business research method class. And today we are going to start a new chapter, and the chapter is named as sampling. So today we are going to start sampling, and in today's lecture we are going to discuss about sampling, universe, census, sample, and what are the characteristics of good sample. So basically, what is the sampling? We have to go through the basics of the research. In the basics of the research, when at the stage of the data collection, it is important to understand to whom we have to collect the data. If you talk about the population, suppose you want to collect the data about the customer satisfaction towards the particular brand, suppose like a Vivo, you want to collect the satisfaction of the customer who are using Vivo mobiles. So in that case, you have to know what are the customer, how many customers are using that brand, but it is impossible to collect the data from all the customer. So in that situation, we use sampling technique. So basically, what is a sampling? Sampling is defined as a selection of the sum part of an aggregate or the totality, on the basis of which the judgment or interference about the aggregate or the totality is made. Means we collect, because in the sampling what we are going to do, we collect only the small portion of the population. Suppose if we talk about in India, it may be possible the people who are using the Vivo mobile phone will be 1 lakh or the 2 lakh people. So for the researcher, it is impossible to collect the data from the 1 lakh people. So they collect the data from the only the part of the whole population. Suppose 1 lakh people are using that mobile phone, so they may collect the data from around maybe 5,000 to 10,000 people. So this is only the part of whole your population. So in the sampling, we select just the part of whole population or the whole universe, who is our target population according to the research. In other words, it is a process of the obtaining the information about the entire population. Means by using sampling, we conclude the information about the entire population, but by examining only the part of it. We are not going to examine the whole population, we are going to examine only the one part of that population which will be the ideal to that population. And in the most of the research work in the survey, they usually use this approach to make generalization or the draw inference based on the sample about the parameter of population, and from which the sample is taken. So in the sampling technique, it is important to understand what is sample and also what is the population, who will be the population, because these terms are coming repeatedly in our study. Population, universe. So population and universe are the basically the total target people or the frame about which we want to collect the data. I have taken an example like you want to collect the data about the customer satisfaction of the Vivo mobile phone. So all the customers who are using the Vivo mobile phone will be the universe. So these are the terms, and what we are going to do, we collect only the one part of it. We select only the one part of the whole universe in our study, that is called sampling. And the researcher quite often select only the fewer items from the universe for their study purpose, because it is tough or impossible to conduct a research on whole population. And in this type of the sampling, means in the sampling, all is done on the assumption that the sample data will enable him to estimate the population parameter. What do you mean by the estimate the population parameter? Means whatever the people we have we are collecting or the selecting for the research, they may be the representative of the whole population, they have the similar characteristics of the population. So, it is assumed that the sample data which we are going to collect, or the sample which we are going to collect, that is according to estimated population parameter. The item so selected constitute what is technically called sample, means the people we have collected, or we talk about the customers. So, customers are your sample, and there is a selection process, the technique is called sampling design, means by what process we are going to select our sample, what techniques we are going to use, what formula we are going to use, that is called a sample design. And the survey conducted on the basis of the sample is described as a sample survey. So, and basically in this type of research, it is assumed that the sample should be true representative of the population characteristics without any biasness, so that it may result in the valid and reliable conclusion. Whatever the sample we are taking, it assumed that they have the similar characteristics of a population, that whatever the characteristics they are thinking, means if the person is using the Vivo mobile phone, it is assumed that they understand all the feature, whatever the question they want to ask about the customer satisfaction. So, they are the kind of your ideal representative of the population. And the sampling is the process of selecting. Basically in the sampling process, what we do means what we can select. Basically it is possible that you can select a people, you can select the organization, depends upon the type of the research. If you are doing the customer research, then whom you are going to select? You are going to select people. If you are conducting the research in the broader platform, or the country wide platform, or the region wide platform, or the industry wide platform, in that situation our sample may be organization. Suppose you want to conduct a research to understand what is the HR practices in IT industry. So, in that case, the companies which are in the IT industries, that will be our sample. And what we are going to choose, it is not possible to collect the data from the all IT industry, because in our country or around the world, the number of the IT countries start from the very small organization to the organization which have maybe 5 lakh or the 10 lakh of the employees. So, we collect only the ideal sample or the ideal organization for our study, and from the population of the interest, so that the studying the sample may be fairly generalize our result back to the population from which we are chosen. Then why do we need sampling? What are the need for using the sampling? Why we cannot conduct the research and we collect the information from the every single sample or the every single target audience, or from the population or the universe? Why we cannot conduct a research in which we include the everyone in it? We did not include the everyone in it because of the following reason. First is that the sampling can save our time and money, because if the population or the sample which we have selected, they have the similar characteristics, then it does not matter that you conduct the data which we have initially taken the example like your Vivo mobile customer. They may have the 1 lakh customer, but if you have the ideal population of the even 5,000 customer, then they can also give the same result what 1 lakh people can give. So, in this situation, it is going to save our time, because you are going to conduct only the research on the 5,000 people instead of the 1 lakh people, and it is going to save our money. And the sample study is usually less expensive than the census study. In the census studies, basically is a study when you collect the data from the entire population or the entire universe. In that process, you are not going to select only the few people from the population, you are going to conduct the whole population, means you are going to collect data from the every single customers. So, that will be your census survey. And the sampling may enable the more accurate measure for the sample study is generally conducted by the trained and experienced investigator, and it also give you more accurate measures because sampling and the data which we collect in the sampling, in that the experience and the trained people or investigator are hired for that. Then the sample remain the only way when the population contain the infinite, means it is difficult to analyze the population. We are going to see there is a two type of the population, infinite and finite population. So when the population is infinite, means it is not easily you can determine your population. So in that type of the study, the sample is the one and only way. Then sampling remain the only choice when the test involve the destruction of the item under the study, means you want to conduct this test which involve the destruction or distortion. So in that type of the study, it is good you can use only sampling technique. Then sample usually enable to estimate the sampling error and thus assist in obtaining the information occurring and the characteristics of the population. And whatever the sampling error may be in your study, by using the method we can, whatever the error in the study, we can try to eliminate those type of errors. Then what are the basically the advantage of the sampling? The sampling make possible the study to the large and the heterogeneous or the different characteristics of the population. In the universe, it may be the possible that your population will be heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means they have the different characteristics. Like I continue with the example of the Vivo customer. Suppose you have the 1 lakh Vivo customers in India. It is saying that 1 lakh people are the using the customer, but the characteristics of the customer may be different. Take an example, age wise distribution. It is possible that the people, there is some lot of the people who have the age between 10 to 20, their needs, their requirement may be different. People who are using the Vivo mobile phone, then there is another segment which is from 20 to 30 years. This lot of the segment, this lot of the population may be in the higher studies or they are new working professional. So their needs and the requirement may be different. Then again, if you move further, then the age, if we divide the criteria according to the age, then the age will be your 30 to 40. It may be possible that the customer which are using your mobile phone may be the professional in the different segment, or they are in the higher level of the organization. So in this type of the bifurcation, you can see that the person, the customer who are the minor or the student who is the 10th class or the 12th class student, their need will be different from the person who is in a job. So this is your characteristics of the population is different. So sampling make possible to conduct the study when you have the large and heterogeneous population. Then sampling is basically economic, means previously in the need of the sampling we have seen that because the sampling, in the sampling we are collecting the data from the very small segment, so the prices or the cost of the conducting the study is less. Then it is speedy. Of course, if you are collecting the data on only 5% or the 10% of the population, so you can easily collect the data and the time of the collecting the data is lesser than if you are collecting the data from the 100% of the population. Next is accuracy, and if you get the ideal sample, means if you get the ideal sample means the sample which you have collected have a similar characteristics of your population. In that case, the result will be more accurate because you collecting the data in a heterogeneous population. So when you collect the data in the heterogeneous population, then the result may be not as accurate. Suppose we was collecting the data of the customer satisfaction to launch a new product for the youngster, but you are collecting the data throughout the age group. in that age group 70-year person will be there, then 50-year person will be there. So their needs will be different than your youngsters, the people who are in the 15, in the 20s. So their need will be different. So in that case your result may be not accurate, but by the sampling we target our population and we collect the data from the desired population. Then sampling save the source of the data from being all consumed, means your data should not be all consumed by the sampling method. Then what are the basically the disadvantage of the sampling? If the sampling is biased or not representative or too small, then the conclusion which we have drawn from it is not very valid or reliable. If you are targeting the age group of the 20s, but you are collecting the data from the age of group of the 40 and 50s, then in that case they are not a true representative. So your data will not give the desired and valid and more reliable result. Second is the research. The respondent to study the must have the common characteristics, which is the basis of the study. Means the respondent which we have collected or the sample which we have selected, they must have the common characteristics, means they should be similar in the characteristics. Next is, if the population is very large and there is a many section or the subsection of the sampling procedure become a very complicated. If you are selecting the very large section of the population, and although it is a sampling, and in the sampling you can take a very large sample and you are again dividing those samples. Suppose in the customer study, now you are collecting the data depend upon the age of the customer, profession of the customers, then it means you are dividing it, you are making the section or the subsection of the population. So it will be very complicated process, and if the researcher does not possess the necessary skill and technicality and know-how, then it may not give you desired research in the sampling procedure. Then we come to the topic universe. So basically what is the universe? The universe are the object of the study are referred to as a characteristics, and the unit possessed then them are called a elementary unit, means the attribute that the object means the people have the characteristics, or the unit means that suppose you are collecting the data about the customer satisfaction, and the customer will be your elementary unit, and the group of your unit means the collection of the all unit is called as your research. The aggregate of the such unit is basically described as a population, and the all unit in the any field of the inquiry constitute your universe. Means the all unit means all the type of the customers from which we want to collect the data, or you can say the field of the inquiry constitute the universe, and the all inventory unit on the basis of the one characteristics or more characteristics is to constitute your population. The first step of the developing a research design is to define the set of object, means you have to define from whom, from where we have to collect the data, means you have to select the object, their technicality, and which is basically called as universe to be studied. And universe can be your finite universe and also infinite universe. So what is a finite universe? When the number of the items are certain. Suppose if you talk about the customers, then you get to know then how many customers were there. Then infinite means the infinite universe, the number of the item is infinite, means you don't know the how many customers were there. We have the one example of the infinite population, like if you collect the data from any city, you want to know the perception of the particular people who are living in a city, then the population of the city, because we can get the data from the government website that what is the population of the city. So it is a finite population. Then the number of the workers in the factory, it is well defined number of the how many people are working in a factory, so you can get easily the total number of the workers. So these are the example of your finite universe. So what are the example of the infinite universe? Like the number of the stars in the sky, we cannot determine how many stars in the sky. Then like the listener of the specific radio program, if there is a certain radio program which is on every day or at 8 p.m. so you cannot get to know the how many people are the listening. So you cannot define the listener of that population. So these are the example of your infinite universe. Then next topic is concept of the statistical population. So population is basically the distinctive group of the individual where the group comprise a notion or the group of the people who have a common characteristics. Universe is a broader term, and in the universe our population is existed, and in statistics the population is the pool of the individual from which we are going to draw our statistical sample, and thus any selection of the individual group together by the common feature can be said to be the population, and either the underlying set of the observation from which the sample is drawn. So we are conducting the study. So all the customers, taking the example of your Vivo customers. So all the Vivo customers in India from the date of the launch of the Vivo till date will be your universe. Suppose it may be the possible that the 1 lakh people has actually buyed your Vivo phone till today, but it may be chances that the person who has buyed that phone, they are not using. So in the population you assume that the people who has buyed the phone, but when we talk about the population, then you talk about the who are the existing using customers, and you defined our population. Means suppose if you are targeting to the youth, then the people who in the age, the customer who is the age group of your 20s and the from the age of the 10 years to the 30 years will be the target audience, and you want to launch the product, then they will be your population. The concept of the statistical population, and basically the philosophical meaning is all the observation could be taken from the range of the inference, means all the observation which could we have taken. There is example giving that the barnacle. The barnacle is a kind of the species which is a marine species. So you can say the barnacle, you want to collect the data about the barnacle and it is a marine species, so it may be present in oceans, but the practical meaning is that all the observation within the research range of the inference means where we can easily collect, because if this species may be in the very deep oceans, so you cannot get to collect it. So what will the target will be, which is nearby the coast. So this is your statistical population. Then census. So well organized. What is the census? Basically census is a well organized procedure for gathering and analyzing the information regarding to the member of the population is called a census. So in the census what we are going to do, we collect the data from the throughout the whole population. So if you are collecting the data from the whole population, then that is called a census. The good example of the census is our census data, which is collected by the government of India every year. We collect the data every 10 years. The last we have collected into 2011, and next it should be collected in the 2021, but because of the COVID it is delayed. So what is the basic difference between your census and sampling? So census basically systematic method that collect and record the data about the member of the population is called a census, and then the sampling refers to the portion of the population only, and it collect the data from the every single customer, but they take only the partial people. The study that here we have a study on the each and every unit of the population. यहाँ पे only handful unit of the population. Then time required, the time is very consumed, it take very much time, but sampling is the fastest method. Then the other means is that cost is, it is a very expensive, then sampling is the economic method. Result, if you talk about the census, more reliable and accurate than your sampling method. There is a less chance of the any error, but in the sampling, depend upon the size and the population, it may be cause some error. And basically it is appropriate for the where you have the heterogeneous population, and the sampling where you have the homogeneous population. Then the sample is basically refers to the small and the measurable version of the large group, and it basically characterized as a you are collecting large population, the population is always large, so the sample is only just the statistical or the small part of your population. And use of the statistical testing, when the population size is too large for the test, include the all possible member or the observation. The sample should represent the population as a whole and not reflect the any biasness of the specific attitude. And the basically sample is an unbiased number, and the observation taken from the population is ideal to your population. And in other words, what we can say that the sample is the portion or the part or the fraction of the whole group, or an act as a subset of the population. And sample are used in the variety of the setting research where the research is conducted. Means there is just the small portion of your population. Using the small number of the people who represent, basically the small number of the people who represented the entire population and still provide the valid result while cutting back the time and resources. Basically the population has these characteristics. They are the two representative of population, then they can be easily accessible to the your researcher, and they having the small sampling error, then it should be economical and viable to collect. Then the result can be applied to the universe in general, and it should be goal oriented, means it should be related to the research goal, and it is practical. Then the difference between the sampling and the population is, the sampling means the population referred to the collection of the all element posing the common characteristic, and a sample means it is basically the subgroup of the member of the population choosing in a participate of the study. Population means each and every unit of the group, and the sample is a only handful unit of your population. Then the characteristics, their characteristics will be named as parameter, and the characteristics of population named as statistics. Data collection, the population means the everything is included, and it is a sample survey. Then it is focused on only the identifying the characteristics, means if we focus the population, then we are focusing only on the identifying the characteristics of the population, but in the sample we conduct to make the reference about the population. So this is all for the today class. I hope you understand the difference between the population, universe and the sampling, and we will continue these topic in the next class also. Thank you everyone.